Good afternoon. My name is Adam Hamilton. Again, I am the Building Support Manager and Architecture Consultant here at CAD Technology Center. The topic of today's webinar is Infraworks 360, the Model Builder portion and the Sketchup 3D Warehouse. Just as a brief introduction, Infraworks 360 is a subscription add-on, and I wanted to point that out because the Infraworks application, the core application, is included in both the Building Design Suite Ultimate and the Infrastructure Design Suite. The 360 portion is a subscription-based add-on that you can connect to your subscription. You're paid in different increments, and you can contact our sales staff regarding how that works. But the intent of Infraworks, and particularly Infraworks 360, has three portions really. The main one is collaboration, cloud-based collaboration, the ability to publish and share your documents on the web to your Autodesk Cloud account, and then have your clients and team members be able to interact with it in a timely, effective manner. 2, visualization. The ability for Infraworks to create not just the local site, but to include the area, the topography, the roadways, and the buildings surrounding your site lets you study both the urban perspective of maybe that project or just the actual site itself, and you can do visualization studies and lighting studies, and it's a quite important analysis piece to the problem. You're also able to make images, post images, create walkthroughs and videos, and again publish and post those either online to your stakeholders or create them and save them locally. You're able also to do those analysis tools that I was talking about previously. Again, not just the building, but rather the site, and look into features, whether it's the building objects, whether it's the topography of the site. The analysis tools inside Infraworks are very powerful. But today we're going to be looking at two portions, the model builder, and how you can use that, and then the ability to pull outside elements, outside features inside to help build your model. So with that, let me discuss the Model Builder preview. First of all, it is a preview. It's a technology preview. It's open to all Infraworks 360 users with this option. And I say preview because we have seen this in the past, and so it's not defined yes or no, that the previews will usually come about to become a paid service, a credit-based service. Autodesk did this with things like the rendering tools, cloud rendering and cloud analysis tools, that at first it was open and free, and so you were allowed to use it for a period of time. But once it has matured, I'm pretty sure they're going to develop some sort of pricing scheme or credit-based scheme. But I'd say take advantage of the free preview now. But the most important aspect of it is it's easy to use. Other people have taken a look at the base application, the base Infraworks application. You know that you have to find the civil files and the GIS files, and it requires a lot of coordination with a few different teams, and they are available out there, and they're free documents out there, but you have to gather them in different locations and bring them in and assemble them. The Model Builder tool, and I'm just going to hop over to my Infraworks here and pop out. The Model Builder application, as you can see here and in red, preview. When I start it up, it is a preview tool that allows you to access the, good thing I created a slide, allows you to access the map documents for At first, this was just the continental United States, but they have now opened this up to a lot of the globe. It's open source documentation. As you can see here, it's open street maps, highways and railways, and the building information. So currently, it's open source. Large metropolitan areas. I've done some work with, say, San Francisco, Chicago, Minneapolis here at home, also New York City. These areas tend to be more developed, so less developed areas could be more rural places or less populated areas. And so just know that if you attempt to use the the model builder to create your area, it may or may not come in with buildings, although the roads and highways, the imagery, and the elevation do get assembled. My next slide shows that you can zoom in. It's not a particular or specific areas, but you can zoom into any location. And the intent here is that the maximum area model builder can do is 150 square kilometers, which is pretty large. It's the entire metro area of Paris or Rome, but it can be large areas of major cities, I mean entire cities, and we can take a look at that in a second. It does pull in elevation data. It does pull in the imagery, again pulling Bing Maps to drape over that 3D terrain that we pulled in. And it includes roads and highways, so intelligent roads and highways, and if available, we pull in buildings. So I'm going to open up my Infraworks here. And again, this 360, you'll notice this is a different login. It also requires you to have your Autodesk 360 login, so you're able to sign in or out. And that also includes the groups that you may or may not be working in. So we have that information. Again, we have your cloud-based areas. So when you go and use either the model builder, or if you create a local file and post it up to the cloud, there are your online models, and then here on top is your local models. That Bloomington site I had shown you before. I particularly like this site, so if we had popped between my PowerPoint here, you see I have Highway 494, 77, and I have the river valley down here to the lower right. Once in Infraworks, you'll see that this is the map that it created me. Now it's important, I like to show that the 360 created not only the 2D geometry, it's actually 3D geometry, and as I scroll in, you'll see the 3D topology, the water, the ground, and it drapes the imagery over the supplied 2D and 3D information. With that open source, you'll see we got in the roads, and so some of this information, if you hover over the road or select it, there you can get information about these roads, and as long as there's data tied to it, it will come in. Okay. So the model builder allows you to zoom in and create different sites. I'm going to close that guy out because some of the more interesting portions, here I'll jump into Chicago. And this is a rather large, this is me maxing out the entire limits of the sites of model builders. But here you can see that when I rotate into an isometric, the entire metro area of Chicago has been created. Not just the large buildings, but in this particular area, as I zoom in closer and closer, someone has taken the time to generate local homes, local buildings, and so that data has been brought in. It's a pretty neat feature. Okay. Now again, this is not everywhere. I've taken time to to locate other locations. That Bloomington site we were in had some smaller amount of buildings. Again, it had some majors, but even then, as you can see here, it's missing the Mall of America. However, they got IKEA, and even has included our new CTC location over here down by the river. So this will get updated as well. Okay. And again, this is all open source, so it gets published to a particular website, and that's where it's being drawn from. I know I've had that question in the past, but depending on the areas, they may or may not do some of the larger buildings, but may neglect some of the smaller buildings. However, the road information, train information, trail information does get pulled in, again, based off that open source data. In July, at the end of June or early July, they released a new version. So if you have looked at Infraworks 360, there's now a later release. And again, that opened up the door to the rest of the world. So here before class, what I did was decide to zoom in and get some data regarding Rome, one of my personal favorite places to go. And here you can see now we have all sorts of buildings and rivers and roads, and again, this is not the continental United States. So that was one of the new things, the new benefits of the newer release is that they opened up the model builder to non-continental United States. So that's the big part with the model builder is, first of all, it's a technology preview. So take some time, take a look at it, click on things. If there's particular locations and sites that you're looking to develop in 3D, one of my favorite portions of this is that it's able to generate that 3D data. You're able to see that site. I know previously we had used things like Sketchup, which is flat, but hey, we could always pull up buildings, or even in the Revit model using massing, but again, you're using a flat terrain, whereas this allows you that ability to have multi-level 3D immersive environment. And it's easy to use. So being able to go into the model builder and see the area you're trying to access. One thing to note, and this is something that has come up before, is that Infraworks 360, as well as a couple other applications such as Showcase, don't like to be shared over screens. So it's a good native screen, and so it's having some difficulty today opening up some of those elements, and that's just because of the non-native resolution. We have other videos showing it in action that were created at native resolution, so if you want to, please feel free to take a view of those. But the next portion I wanted to talk about was the 3D warehouse. Now, typically, Autodesk, yes, we don't like to promote other people's applications, but however, the awesomeness of Infraworks is that it's able to bring in content from other locations, whether it's your Revit model, whether it's a 3D AutoCAD file, but also whether you're utilizing some SketchUp information. And so this is always kind of fun. First of all, the SketchUp 3D warehouse is a location online that you can search where you have access to 3D open source content, so user source information. People, students have had a good time creating very detailed realistic elements, and that's an important portion because, as I had in some my say Chicago file, the open source data would generate squares. And so here you can see some of these buildings, and they are just boxes. But and luckily Infraworks has skins that you can wrap your building in, and so you can get a good feel for it, but it doesn't actually accurately represent necessarily that building. And so what can be beneficial when you're trying to get your design out is any chance that you can give your client, your stakeholders, a familiar base. You give a point of reference, whether it's the Capitol, whether it's the Empire State Building. You're able to pull in to your Infraworks model important real-world data. And so being able to go to the 3D warehouse and grab, as you see here, the Brooklyn Bridge, can provide valuable context, model context of your site. Oh, that building over there, now I can see it. Again, 3D warehouse is open sourced, so you're able to go through the web and find 3D buildings such as I have here. This particular building is the Art Institute of Chicago. It's a file that I had brought in. However, some of these native SketchUp files don't pull directly in well. We've found that out due to size, due to amount of faces, and so what we've found is as long as you bring it into SketchUp, which is a free download, free application, that you can export out the 3D model to say a Collada file, DAE format, and it works very well inside the Infraworks environment. Okay, now that I'm back inside the Infraworks environment, I'm just going to scroll over because I've already brought a couple files in. Down here we can see we have Bearsfield. I can't wait to get the new Viking Stadium as soon as someone builds it, and we'll put it in. But until then, I guess we're going to have to live with some Chicago fans if you're listening. But you're able to bring in the SketchUp file, that Collada export, and bring it inside your model. This piece of information has properties, and so it can have a name, it can be tagged, there's resources that are tied to it. Okay, it also has the ability to be edited, so you can move it around. You shift it, you place it, and you can configure it. Okay, so bringing an element in. I've also brought into this particular file. I'm going over here. As you can see, the Willis Tower, formerly the Sears Tower. I still don't like to call it that, but here I've brought in the Sears Tower, and as you can compare it to the buildings next to it, it has a lot more, graphical fidelity. It's true to what it is. Someone has taken the time to create an accurate representation, a very nice looking building that can be placed on its site and replace say, the box building that the default Infraworks gets. And so that now you're able to kind of get more of a feel for the site. And I've had some fun with this in some of my other models. I've brought in the Seattle Space Needle, and I've brought in to New York City. I've added in the new Freedom Tower to replace the World Trade Center and kind of give a good feel. Here you see what the Infraworks model brought us, and it is just an outline and a flat area. Again, this is open source, and so use it, don't use it. I'm going to particularly remove it. But then you're able to bring in, using some of the tools, you can add in new elements, and so data sources. And now I can see some of my buildings. Here's my Sears Tower, here's my Bearsfield. But then I can add in a 3D model, jumping to my location, where I have a lot of my SketchUp exports. There's the Art Institute of Chicago file, and bringing it in adds the file into my data sources. Now before it can come in, we have to configure it. And that's an important part. If you're trying to follow this at home, I want to be able to show you this so that, hey, I tried to bring this in and it didn't work. It's okay. First of all, the type. You see some of these yellow triangles, these warnings. We want to make sure that it gets classified as it's supposed to be classified. You can bring in buildings. You can bring in what are called city furniture. If there's a particular car or a boat, something that you want to give your model a better feel, bring it in, classify it as the type of element it's going to be, and that way it can be filtered and sorted and affected by some of the analysis tools. Once that's done, we can worry about the geolocation because these elements come in. Now, by default, the Infraworks environment utilizes the coordinate system. It knows where things are being dropped in. So if your Revit model is accurately located using the tools involved, it can place it. If you're using civil data, it has a coordinate system and can accurately place that information. The SketchUp elements or the other 3D modeled elements available online may not have coordinate systems, but you do have the ability to interactively place, and so it will load the model in, and as you can see here, there she is, and I can position and locate this particular model, and when ready, place, and again, always close and refresh. After a little processing, it will have that model placed inside the Infraworks environment. And there we go, as it's regenning the background. And again, once it's placed, it has a positioning system so that you can get it into its particular location. We don't need to spend too much time monkeying around with this guy, but if its height is a little high, if it needs to be set into a hillside, you can always come back in, select it, and manipulate it. Again, grabbing the object, there are rotates, there are adjustments, there is scales and shifting. And so we are able to add in these real 3D elements, and adjusting it is now part of my model. And once saved, there's my 3D element inside the Infraworks environment. So that is some of the elements, some of the big things, important parts of the Infraworks tools. That model builder allows you to generate these beautiful site elements. It gives you that ability to create 3D topology that has really been missing from a lot of our urban planning documents that we've generated before. And then allows you to go out and bring in, whether it's your Revit model or going out to the 3D warehouse to find those elements generated by other people that you can bring in and give good context to your site design. Okay, some of the later things that we're going to look at in Infraworks at later times are going to be some of our analysis tools. Taking a look at feature analysis, building analysis, and then creating some presentation type documents. But I'm glad you joined me today for this technology preview. Again, we talked about the model builder, and then we talked about the 3D warehouse.